The second day of our conference, and we are starting the second plenary session soon. All of you are requested to kindly settle down. We'll start in a couple of minutes. All right, we'll start. At the very outset, I would like to invite and welcome the Honorable Chairperson of this session, Professor S.R. Bhatt. Professor S.R. Bhatt is the chairperson of Indian Philosophy Congress and also chairman Asian African Philosophy Congress. I request sir to please join us on the stage, sir. Can we please welcome him with a huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. It is a matter of complete honor for Nalanda International University and India Foundation to have with us Shri Eknath Dhakalji. Shri Eknath Dhakalji is a former minister from Nepal and chairman of UPF IAPP Asia Pacific. I request all of you, because he has come all the way from Nepal to join us for the conference, to please welcome him with a huge round of applause. We are also truly honored to have amongst us Major General Wetsop Namgyel, who is the ambassador of Bhutan to India. He has also come all the way from Delhi to join us for the... And from England, ladies and gentlemen, Professor Geeta Gandhi Kingdon. She is the chair of Education and International Department at the Institute of Education, University College London. Ma'am, we are truly privileged to have you, ma'am. Please join us, ma'am. I now request the Honorable Chair to take the proceedings. I request a volunteer to give a hand mic to our chair. Sir, over to you, sir.
Come over there, huh? Come over there. That would be better. Good morning to everyone. It is very much relevant as well as significant to ponder over the present existential scenario, which is vitiated by this COVID pandemic. In fact, we are using the word post-COVID, but in anticipation, because still we are in the grip of this particular element, and but we have to plan in advance as to what should be the world order after dissipation of this malignant event. And therefore, we have planned this particular conference with this very significant topical theme. And for this, credit goes to Sri Ram Madhavji for conceiving and for to Professor Sunena Singh also to execute it in a very meticulous and I think very convenient ambience. We have a galaxy of speakers today, and before I request them to come over and present their considered views, a brief introduction I would like to give. And that is, we are deliberating on this theme in the context of dharmic traditions. And these dharmic traditions emanated from classical Indian thought. And by dharma, we do not just mean religion, which consists of rites and rituals and modes of worship, etc. That's not. Dharma for us is an overriding principle the foundational tenet of our modes of thinking and ways of living. And our modes of thinking are characterized by spiritual orientation. And by spirituality, we mean one, fundamental unity of entire existence, oneness, non duality. And second is mutual care, mutual help, mutual support, and a sort of attitude of non duality. And this is the theoretical foundation of which the practical counterpart is our democratic mode of living, wherein we care for all and respect all, not only the animate beings, but also the inanimate things, nature in particular. And therefore, our approach is at once holistic and integral. One thing more I would like to point out, please come. Dharma is having three facets. It is the surviving principle, sustaining principle of the entire cosmos. Our traditional saying is Dharmo Vishwasya Jagatah Pratishtha. Dharma is the foundation of the mobile universe in the cosmos. We make a distinction between cosmos, that is Vishwa, and Jagat. Vishwa is the total reality of which this mutative world is a part and parcel. So Jagata, we have these three facets of the existence of every entity in this world. And therefore Dharma is a sustaining principle. Every object, animate or inanimate, has its own dharma, that is essence. And depending upon that essence, it has its own nature, its own function also. Every object has some function or the other. Ours is a teleological approach to reality. It's not just a mechanical manifestation of the cosmic process. So this is the sustaining principle. Every object, water has its own dharma, air has its own dharma, earth has also its own dharma. Even a snake also has a dharma, and we worship therefore. We worship every object of the universe. This is our holistic approach, which is characterized by spirituality. And then, more important is the regulating. Dharma is a regulating principle. It regulates individual life, it regulates life of society, life of the nation, life of the cosmos as such. And therefore, regulating nature of dharma is very significant. I shall dwell upon it at the end of this deliberation. And third one is that it is also enhancing. It enhances our existence. It heightens our existence, makes us noble. And this nobility is not divisive. It has to be all round. So, Bhavatu Vishwamaryam, the whole world should be noble. And we must make an attempt to nobilize the entire world. And therefore, it is enhancing principle also. And these are very significant. So, we say, Manurbhava Janya Devyam Janam. So, dharma therefore is very important. And on the basis of dharma, now we have to meet with the present calamity. And we have to chart out as to what should be the structure of the cosmos now, future one, where there should be twin objectives. One is wellness of each and every iota of the cosmos, not just of human beings, and we call it as hita. And the other is sukha, happiness. That if there is wellness, there will always be happiness. And happiness is the component of our life, and it consists only in realizing perfection, which is inherent in our self. So, with this preliminary remark, I now invite Sri Eknath Dhakal, who is from our neighboring country, Nepal. I call it as a cousin country. because we belong to the same, I should say, ethnic brotherhood. So he belongs to Nepal Parivar Dal, and so he served as a minister for the Ministry of Peace and Reconstruction of the government of Nepal. Peace is a coveted ideal, and he looked after that particular realization. So, and the reconstruction of Nepal. Every country needs reconstruction. Our country also, India also needs, but he's looking after reconstruction of Nepal, our neighboring country. And he is the head of the Nepal chapter of Universal Peace Foundation, a United Nations organization which is recognized for peace and wellness. So I earnestly invite Sri Dhakal to make his erudite presentation. Mr. Dhakal, please.
Thank you so much, Professor S.R. Bhattaji, Chairman of our session this morning. Excellencies, fellow panelists, Honorable Ram Manavji, Vice Chancellor of the University, Professor Sanaina Singhji, all distinguished participants from India and throughout the world, ladies and gentlemen. I am delighted to be here standing at this historic educational institution for this timely conference. At the outset, I express my gratitude to the organizers, both the India Foundation and Nalanda University, especially Honorable Ram Madhavji, for extending invitation to me to attend this timely conference. I commend all the deliberations of the first day of the conference, and of course I agreed with the speakers' views that time has come for the Eastern values to rise and lead towards a lasting peace. I bring the good wishes from the peace-loving people of Nepal, as well as the global peace network of the Universal Peace Federation for the success of this great endeavor, and to extend my solidarity. We are meeting at the time when the world is struggling to emerge from an unprecedented crisis. The tradition of Dhamma, which Nepal and India proudly share as a precious part of our history and cultural legacy, and which has influenced much of Asia's thought and approach to life, offer strength, solace, and hope. Dhamma emphasizes the importance of duties, rights, laws, conduct, virtues, and the right way of living. Here in Asia, we have an approach to life that considers suffering to be an inevitable as a birth or death, and even as a necessary vehicle for the attainment of maturity and balance, fulfillment and peace. In addition, the emphasis on the compassion, being tolerant of different points of views, universal responsibility, inclusiveness, the interconnectedness of all things, and a shared interdependence is more important than ever before as we head towards the post-COVID world order. Sustainable peace universal health, justice and equality, caring, sharing and happiness are the driving forces rather than pursuits of individual or national self-interest. The forces are very much the pillars, the underpin, the Universal Peace Federation, which I represent for Asia Pacific, and it holds the highest status with the Economic and Social Council of the United Nations. Many decades ago, the founders of UPF, fondly called as Father and Mother Moon, launched their vision of the world as one family. This, of course, resonates with the Sanskrit phrase found in the Upanishad, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Father and Mother Moon's call owed the conscience of all people well beyond the geography of South Asia. In bringing their message to the world stage, the UPF founders paid the price. They were made to undergo untold suffering, from which they emerged more spiritually charged in the nation of Korea, which is matured through the Oriental values embodied on our Eastern philosophies. Today, along with the Korea and Father and Mother Moon, are emerging as the beacon of hope, which was even forecasted by the first Asian Nobel laureate, Indian poet Rabindranath Tagore, in his prophetic poem, Lamp of the East. Today, the UPF is present in every continent and every country, counting millions of individuals, cutting across the barriers of nation, community, religion, and languages. No less a person than former UN Secretary General acknowledged the UPF as a cornerstone for building a better post-COVID world. The message of UPF in today's world is one of the hope and optimism. Human capacity can overcome setbacks and learn from the past mistakes. This has been the common element in the series of rallies of hope organized in the past few months, in which millions throughout the world have participated. The rallies of hope sponsored by UPF was actually addressed by the President of the United States, the Prime Minister Shinzo Abe from Japan, even former Vice President Hamid Ansari ji, and former Prime Minister Honorable Deve Gowda ji from India, among more than 120 current and former heads of state and government. Of course, they discuss almost the similar topic, but more in political aspect. Currently, UPF just launched the Think Tank 2022 Global Forum, chaired by the former UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. This forum brings together the best minds of the world and a wealth of expertise from all fields of human endeavor. It focuses on contributing to peace and reconciliation in the various regional hotspots and throughout the world. Now, UPF is organizing two important summits in coming months, actually early next year, the Interreligious Summit and also World Summit on Peace. They will be held in South Korea next year. And to coordinate the summit preparation and the participation of the eminent world leaders, I have been appointed as a special global envoy to the World Summit and represent our three co-hosts, the Prime Minister of Kingdom of Cambodia, Samdech Hun Sen, who is one of the co-chair of the organizing committee, a Mother of Peace, Dr. Hak Jahan Moon, who is the founder of UPF, and former UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, who also served as one of the co-organizer of upcoming summit. I hope that many distinguished participants, especially our co-host of this event, we will be able to attend these upcoming World Summits. In addition to this, Think Tank Global Forum will be honored to work collaboratively with India Foundation for common good. In another note, as one of the global vice president of Sonmun University, based in South Korea, may I invite our co-host of this conference, Honorable Professor Sunaina Singh ji, the Vice Chancellor of this university, to establish Memorandum of Understanding with Sonmun University in your convenience. In conclusion, I would like to once again thank Ms. Lalita ji, the Director of India Foundation, and Professor Sunaina Singh ji, the Vice Chancellor of Nalanda University, for extending me to attend this important conference. A special thanks to Sri Ram Manav ji, the former National Secretary General of Bharatiya Janata Party, for introducing me to the India Foundation. I look forward to working together with you in the near future. Namaste and thank you very much.
Thank you, Shri Eknath Dhakalji. On behalf of people of India, I reciprocate the good wishes of the friendly people of Nepal and wish that we work in close cooperation for realization of peace and prosperity in the entire cosmos. India and Nepal share a very rich legacy, and that should not only be for mutual benefit, for the welfare of the entire cosmos, because we always believe sarve bhavantu sukhinaha. So that is the point, and you have rightly pointed out that our motto should be vasudhaiva kutumbakam. But we have two facets of this phrase. One is the idealistic one, that let everyone be friendly to us and we be friendly to them as a part and parcel of the same family. But the other is a pragmatic one, that we should of course be friendly to others, but others should also be friendly to us. It can't be one-way traffic, it has to be both ways. Sri Ram Madhav ji earlier used to talk of soft power, but now he has floated another concept, and that concept is smart power. So we have to make the whole world noble. Then only we can have this sort of reciprocation. You can't be good to one who is evilsome. You have to transform the evilsome into good and be friendly to good. So this curative process is very significant, and Dharma has therefore these two facets. Dharma is at once both curative as well as preventive. And both these facets should be taken into account. Dharma is not divisible. It is indivisible, and it must have its sway throughout the world, throughout the globe. So we are thankful to Sri Dhakalji also for pointing out the need for peace and reconciliation. Now we have another veteran speaker, His Excellency Major General Vetsup Namgyal. He has been serving as Bhutan's ambassador to India since January 2009. And for your kind information, our first Dhamma conference was inaugurated by the Princess of Bhutan in Sanchi, Madhya Pradesh. So, Sri Namgyal, after he was commissioned in 1972, he joined the Royal Bodyguards and was appointed as aide-de-camp, ADC, to His Majesty the Fourth King in 1974. After 1989, he served as Principal ADC and Military Secretary to His Majesty the Fourth King, as well as a senior member of the Royal Secretariat. He is a recipient of the highest military medal, Druk Yugel, and the prestigious Druk Tukse, sorry for wrong pronunciation, Heart Son of Bhutan medal from His Majesty the King of Bhutan in 2010. Like Nepal, Bhutan also is our cultural cousin. And we share the same legacy, particularly the Buddhist one. And the Buddhist is a part of Indian culture, not separate from Indian. We have the common roots between this so-called Sanatana Dharma, that is Hindu Dharma, and the Buddha Dharma. Both are Sanatana. Yesterday also about Buddhism, we said it is Sanatana, it is both. So both are Sanatana in the sense that they have no beginning, they will have no end. And then there are no limitations, it is global. And therefore we talk of ecumenical Hindu Dharma, ecumenical Buddhist Dharma. Now with this introduction I invite Major General Namagyal to make his learned presentation.
Thank you, Professor Bhatt, for the introduction. Shri Ram Madhavji, Professor S.R. Bhatt, the chair of our session, Shri Eknath Dakal, Professor Geeta Gandhi Kingdom, Professor Ramnath Jha, distinguished participants of the conference, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to thank India Foundation and Nalanda University for inviting me to the 6th Dhamma conference, which has been organized so well here in the historic and spiritual land of Rajgir. It is indeed a great honor and privilege for me to be in the presence of such distinguished and learned personalities today and have the opportunity to share my thoughts on Dharma, Dhamma traditions in building a post-COVID world order. I'll give a non-scholarly version of my thoughts because I'm surrounded by such distinguished scholars and thinkers. When we look back in history, what we see is really an account of how the human species has adapted to its surroundings and constantly strived to exercise control over the natural habitat and dominance over each other. This constant drive to gain control and move ahead brought progress as well as problems. Advances in science and technology brought great economic progress, but also made conflicts and wars more destructive. With the massive loss to lives and property from the two world wars, culminating with the explosion of the atomic bomb, even the winners of the Second World War felt the need to stop such large-scale wars and conflicts from taking place. They took the lead in establishing the United Nations to maintain international peace and security and find ways for nations to work together to build a better future for the world. One of the most important agendas of the United Nations is the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals that were adopted by all its members in 2015. Like everything else, the implementation of these goals was disrupted by the pandemic that has seriously affected countries across the world. After almost 2 years since this outbreak, we need to examine the best options for building a post-COVID world order. Quite obviously, the first priority is to bring an end to the pandemic itself. The most effective way to make this happen is to reduce the risk of infection by vaccinating as many people as possible across the world. And in this regard, I would like to salute Prime Minister Modi and his government for the stupendous feat of vaccinating over 1 billion citizens and the continuous drive to vaccinate even more. It is also important to convince people to observe the safety protocols recommended by health experts. These preventive measures must be supplemented by the best possible medicines for effective treatment and reducing mortality. Financial support and innovative scientific work are required for these measures to succeed and bring life back to normal. While lives must be protected, livelihood is equally important. After the tremendous stress inflicted on our economies by the pandemic, we have to now speed up the pace of economic recovery and ensure that it takes place in all the countries and not just in the developed nations who have more financial and technical resources. The third priority is to renew our commitment to protecting the natural environment. We have all noticed the brief respite the lockdowns in many countries gave to the environment. We saw clearer skies and breathed cleaner air, although this short respite came at the cost of drastically reduced revenue from tourism and other business activities. So we need to find a way to strike a good balance between generating revenue and reducing the carbon footprint. The post-COVID economic recovery should be implemented in tandem with the Sustainable Development Goals that the members of the United Nations have committed to achieving by 2030. Governments in all countries must come up with good plans of action, mobilize resources, and lead their citizens in implementing the necessary measures to overcome the pandemic, revive economic growth, and restore normalcy in our lives. Governments alone will not be able to meet and overcome all the challenges in ensuring an effective global recovery. Support and resources from international organizations, philanthropists, billionaires, and the private sector must be mobilized. Coordination of international efforts and action plans is also important to ensure success in building a just and equitable post-COVID world order. In this regard, we should note that in the ultimate analysis, it is people who come up with the plans of action, and it is people who will implement these plans and determine the success of building the post-COVID world order. If we reflect on the impact of human thought and activity, we will see that everything that is good or bad in our world has come to pass through actions triggered by the human mind. It is in this context that the Dhamma traditions can give the right direction to the human mind and play an important role in ensuring a successful recovery from the pandemic. The following human qualities and responses will come into play in building the post-COVID world order. Number one, a sense of duty, responsibility, and discipline. This is essential for observing the COVID protocols and safety measures recommended by health experts. Number two, kindness and empathy for others. This humane quality is of great importance for mobilizing funds to procure vaccines and support economic recovery in the poorer countries. Number three, respect for life and nature. Without tapping into this quality, it will not be possible to mobilize the necessary support in enough countries to successfully protect the natural environment and reverse the pace of global warming and climate change. A sense of duty, responsibility and discipline, kindness and empathy, and respect for life and nature. These are virtues recognized in all religions. In particular, they have a special place in the Dhamma traditions that we follow in India and in Sri Lanka, Bhutan, and other Buddhist nations. In Bhutan, we attach great importance to these values and follow a development philosophy called gross national happiness that gives greater priority to the well-being and happiness of the people. Dharma calls for the right way of living, and it requires the practitioner to place high importance on duty, responsibility, and discipline in order to make good progress on the path. In the Four Noble Truths, Lord Buddha taught that the cause of suffering is desire and craving, and this can be ended by following the Noble Eightfold Path. Desire and craving has been the driving force for all human activity and endeavors, beginning from the basic desire for food and shelter, to the desire for material comfort and leisure, the wish to enjoy good health and to prolong life, to the quest for knowledge and spiritual fulfillment. However, fulfilling material desires does not remove the craving for more satisfaction, as we can see from the way people consume the goods produced by the multinational companies who show no concern over the destructive impact of their business practices on global warming and climate change. This unsustainable lifestyle will become even more widespread unless we can bring a major change in the thinking and outlook of people all over the world. The shock and trauma inflicted by the pandemic is a good time and reminder for us to bring about this change. I believe that one good way to do this is to try and follow the Noble Eightfold Path, which is both simple and profound. What could be more simple and logical than to practice right understanding, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration? This noble path makes perfect sense, although we soon find out that it is not so easy to put into practice. Nevertheless, just making the effort to follow the clear and logical steps of the Eightfold Path and cultivating compassion in the process can bring very positive results. Indeed, generating compassion, which encompasses kindness and empathy towards the plight of fellow humans and the well-being of all sentient beings, will make a tremendous difference in our thought and actions. Compassion is what we need to evoke in the minds and hearts of world leaders, billionaires, activists, and all our brothers and sisters as we strive to build a post-COVID world order. Intellectually and academically, people can quite understand and appreciate the values of duty, responsibility, kindness, and respect for life and the natural habitat that are the hallmarks of Dhamma traditions. What we need to do is to put these values into practice and promote them more effectively to bring about a thought change in people across the world and generate support for ensuring a worldwide recovery from the pandemic. I believe that the outcomes from the 6th Dhamma Conference will have a strong impact on the minds and outlook of people who can make a difference in our lives and outlook of the people and encourage them to work together to build a just and equitable post-COVID world order. This would give real meaning and substance to one of the profound sayings in the Upanishads, Vaisudeva Kutumbakam. The entire world is one family. Thank you very much.
Thank you, His Excellency Namagyal. It's not only a matter of honor for you to be here, it's a matter of honor for us also to have you here in partaking our deliberations. You have very rightly pointed out that we have to cooperate in establishing the new world order. And for that, foundation has already been laid by Lord Buddha's eightfold noble path. And if we adhere to that, definitely the world will be a nice place to live in. You have talked of sustainable development, which is one of the motto of United Nations. But the sustainable development where they talk of is truncated, is lopsided. It has to be seasoned and tempered by spirituality. Unless there is spiritual orientation of science and technology, science and technology are not value neutral. They need to be guided, and they need to be guided by value orientation, and therefore we have to spiritualize science and technology. Just as spirituality also needs to be scientific. It's both ways, of course, but then the development of science and technology can't be bereft of spiritual orientation. Unfortunately, the present day calamity that we are suffering from is because of this lack of spiritual orientation in our use of science and technology. We have misused it. Science and technology are boon, but we have made it bane. And therefore, there is a need to have a re-look at the employment of science and technology. You have also rightly pointed out that the present day this ecological disorder is because of our wrong thinking. We have, to use Buddhist terminology, we have cultivated a kushal chitta, a vicious mind, and not a kushal chitta. And if we have a vicious mind, our actions also will be evilsome. And therefore, Lord Buddha has a great role to play, his thoughts, in establishing the new world order, which we may establish after this post-COVID situation. You have also rightly pointed out that our economy should be compassionate economy, karuna-may economy, and not the present-day individualistic, competitive, exploitative, deprivative economic order. It is, in fact, because of this that we have the present-day problems suffering, vitiating the whole humanity. And therefore, you have rightly pointed out that in a new world order, we have to give a new orientation to our economic planning. That's the need of the day. And again, for this, Buddha's message is very much relevant. Buddha said that economy should be for service, not for profit. Present day, all economic planning is for profit making. We always read in the newspaper, this company has made this much of profit, this much of profit, this much of profit, or this much of loss is to be overcome, etc. It should be service-oriented, not the profit-oriented economy. So there is a need for a new world order, just as there is a need for new social order, new political order, which should be dharma-centric. There should be new economic order as well. So we are grateful to you for pointing out these ideas which are needed for universal wellness. Now we have another very prestigious speaker. Professor Geeta Gandhi Kingdon. She is professor at the Institute of Education, University College London, where she holds the chair of Education and International Development. Prior to this, she worked for 10 years at the Department of Economics, University of Oxford. She has a BSc Honours in Economics from the London School of Economics and MSc and DPhil in Development Economics from the University of Oxford. We have talked of sustainable development and compassionate economy. In fact, for all this we require a proper mindset. And that mindset can come only from proper education. Education is the panacea for all these things, and therefore our system of education should be so engineered that it produces not just learned people, but wise people, good people. In Jawaharlal Nehru University, I was a member of their executive for 2 years. I used to tell the vice chancellor and the other court members there that JNU should not just produce learned people. JNU should produce good people, virtuous people, people who work not only for themselves but for the whole humanity. So we look forward to a very learned presentation from Madam Geeta Gandhi. Gandhi name is associated with your name, Madam. Please come.
It is indeed a great, great pleasure to be here at this amazing venue and this seat of learning, which is recreating what was so noble and the best that India had to offer the world. The Nalanda, the great Nalanda University, this inspiring place of learning. And I'd like to begin by offering my salutations to the Vice Chancellor, Professor Sunaina Singh, and also to Ms. Kumar Mangalam of the India Foundation, and Mr. Ram Madhav, who is setting the intellectual agenda, at least in part, for this conference. Salutations also to Professor Bhatt, the chair of our sessions, and all my co-panelists. The topic of the conference, in amongst the several options that existed that one could talk about, I chose to speak on one aspect of what shall need to be in the post-COVID order. We need to think about education, and value-based education was one of the topics in the agenda, and I have chosen to share some of my thoughts on that. I stand here with 3 identities. One is that the professional one that Professor Bhatt just mentioned, namely me being a professor holding the chair of Education and International Development at UCL. The second is that I'm also the president of a board of a school in North India. So I'm an educator at the school level, in a sense. And thirdly, I'm also a member of the Baha'i community of India. You may have seen the Baha'i temple, one which in New Delhi, which has these 9 doors signifying the different religions of the world and highlighting that the source of all religions is one. So friends, when we talk about the post-COVID order, we have to think about how to forge an education system that would be relevant for the realities of today's world. As Mr. Ram Madhavan said yesterday, and as the concept note for this conference also articulates, the world faces new challenges. It's not that old problems have gone away, but added to those, we have fresh challenges. In amongst them, climate change looms large before us. It has a truly frightening specter presented before humanity. What should education, how should education be in order to address that reality? We have global pandemic of epic proportions. It has been cataclysmic in its effect. How do we build health systems? What kinds of minds are needed? What kind of innovations are needed? And the truly rapid pace of changes in technology, which presents both opportunities but also dangers inherent in it. Technology, the rapid growth of technology is changing the nature of work in ways that will have profound impact on human life. Unskilled jobs, jobs that are repetitive, are increasingly being done by machines, and there is this specter of large-scale unemployment. Unless we have a forward-looking agenda for education that prepares people for this kind of a world that will happen very soon. I think in such a world, it is no longer adequate to have knowledge of facts. It will be needed that people have skills that they have learned with understanding, that they know how to apply those skills, how to problem solve, how to collaborate, how to innovate. So these things that are not so easily replicated by machines or by robots or by artificial intelligence, at least not so far. And I think the creation of kind of moral framework, a creation of an ethical framework that can guide the appropriate use of those technologies, the legal frameworks, these are lacking, and technology has run headlong, outpaced the development of these necessary frameworks within which one can take advantage, humanity can take advantage of these technologies rather than becoming overwhelmed and being taken over. This is a point that Mr. Madhav made yesterday about technology, becoming the driver rather than, and humans unwittingly ceding their sovereignty, their agency, their autonomy to technology, unwittingly. So I think that these emerging challenges highlight our attention to the kind of changes that will be needed in education in order for education to deliver what is needed for today's world. And in that context, it is a painful reflection that in this third decade of the 21st century, a large number of children in the world and even in our own country remain deprived of education. Even the modest Millennium Development Goal, Goal 4 on education, which the world leaders had agreed in 1999 shall be achieved by 2015. And this modest goal was that all children of the primary age, in India we call that age of 6 to 14 years old, shall have completed a course of elementary education. That modest goal was missed by a wide mark. Even if that goal had been fulfilled, the surveys, if we look at the international surveys like PISA, TIMSS, if we look at national surveys like the Annual Status of Education Report, even the NCERT's National Achievement Survey, these show that a large number of children, of millions of children, complete schooling, but without literacy and numeracy skills. But even suppose children did acquire literacy and numeracy skills after 5 or 8 years of schooling, would that be adequate for today's world? And I think we all know the answer to that would still be a very limited conception of what education can and must do. It is clear that education needs to be far broader and wider in its reach and scope, if it is to prepare young minds for today's climate challenges, technological challenges, and the opportunities that exist to harness the benefits of that technology, but also to avoid the dangers of the technology. So, in summary, I think education needs to be redefined such that it does not limit the horizon of millions of children to just the acquisition of a few facts and a few basic skills. A redefinition that frees education from today's largely economic context, and this is something that Professor Bhatt was also referring to. Economic context defined in a narrow sense of profit. Today, education is acquired primarily because of its economic benefits alone. It does not acknowledge the transformative role that education can play, both in the life of the individual and in terms of changing society's organization, improving society's organization. True education is one that releases capacities, develops analytical abilities, confidence in oneself, willpower, goal-setting competencies, and instills the vision that will make an individual a self-motivated agent of social transformation. That is the ambition that education must answer. Human beings are not just material beings. We don't just have bodies. Human beings are also, they have three realities. They are material, They are human beings and they are divine beings. They have spirituality. And Professor Bhatt beautifully summarized the meaning of spirituality when he said that it is holistic and integral living. It represents fundamental unity of the entire universe. It represents care for all, respect for all. Dharma is the sustaining principle. It is the regulating principle. It means inclusivity. I think in the context of this foregoing discussion about what education needs to be about, it is very pleasing that our country's National Education Policy 2020, NEP 2020, insists that schools must go beyond just rote learning and even beyond the integration of arts and music and sports into education. That it needs to go into development of critical thinking, collaboration, creativity, communication, citizenship, good citizenship, both of one's own locality, one's own city, state, nation, and citizenship of the world. And one key value from the ancient Indian tradition that almost everybody has talked about, which is of perennial relevance, but which in today's world is of particular relevance, in today's globalized world, and that is Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam. The whole earth is one family, oft repeated by our Honorable Prime Minister, Mr. Modi ji. What are some of the attitudes that would be needed in order to give effect to the belief of Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam? What would be the attitudes one would need and values and behaviors one would need? Empathy, care, compassion. It's not just tolerance. It's not just coexistence. It is way beyond coexistence and tolerance. It is active care. It's active love, if you like. It is lack of prejudices. It is justice. It is respect, particularly respect for diversity. And the sense that this ancient Indian wisdom of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam is the right ethos for today's world was already strengthened when the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, which were formulated by world leaders in 2015, and they were the successors to the Millennium Development Goals. And under the SDGs, it is sought that by the year 2030, 17 different goals that humanity has set for itself shall be achieved. That the United Nations SDG 4, which is on education, includes within it, it has 7 indicators. One of those indicators is Global Citizenship Education, or GCE. Again, our national education policy is a very enlightened document, and it includes global citizenship education in 3 different paragraphs in the school education section. The NEP is divided up into 2 sections, which is school education and higher education, and roughly 30 pages to each of these. In the first 30 pages, which are about school education, the national education policy mentions global citizenship education in 3 different paragraphs: paragraph 4.24, paragraph 6.20, and paragraph 11.8. And by insisting on inculcating or imparting global citizenship education, the NEP seeks to inculcate an understanding of the importance of inclusivity, which underlies the notion of Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam. And so what it means is that school curricula will have global citizenship education in it. School teacher training for teachers to support such a curriculum will do that. And thirdly, the assessments of children will also be including global citizenship education concepts. Now, at the COP26 conference that's going on at the moment in Glasgow, 2 days ago, there was a session there called Schools Teaching for Climate Action. And every single distinguished speaker at that forum said that it is not enough that schools have global or climate change as part of the curriculum. It is not enough that schools educate about climate change and raise awareness about climate change. What is needed also is attitudinal change and behavior change. And what that requires, I believe, is a will to act, a self-motivation to act. So an education that develops that will, an education that leads to an understanding of the a wholesome relationship that needs to exist between human beings and the natural environment. That kind of an education that goes to the roots of human motivation, that is the kind of education that we need today. And an education which says that even if I need to make sacrifices, even if I need to be less materialistic, consume less, make do with less, travel through modes of transport that will not be producing carbon and adding more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Even if it requires sacrifice on my behalf, I'm willing to do it because I realize that I'm not just a material being, I'm also a spiritual being, and those are important goals for me. So a good education, I believe, must provide at a minimum not only knowledge and skills, but also the values, attitudes, and behaviors that make young people conscious subjects of their own growth and aware that they are also to contribute to the well-being of civilization and to the progress of civilization. A person who's educated in such a way will not be a passive bystander as the affairs of the age proceed, but would be a proactive, citizen taking an active part in all the affairs of society and making their contribution, their share of the contribution to the resolution of these problems. I'd just like to summarize a few principles of good education, what I believe to be a good education. Education must lead to the acquiring of at least some reasonable degree of excellence in at least one productive skill through which an individual can secure the means of living with dignity and honor, but also through which the individual can experience the truth that work is worship, especially when it's done in a spirit of service to others. Secondly, for personal growth and for social change, mere acquisition of knowledge is not enough. It requires the application of will for both of these, for personal growth and for societal improvement. Thirdly, that education that is focused merely on the pursuit of wealth and or of power does not conduce to well-being or happiness. And what does conduce, the kind of education that does conduce to well-being and happiness, is the kind of education that raises self-respect, noble purpose, integrity, and moral qualities. Fourthly, education must provide an understanding of some of the programs of social progress, such as health and sanitation, education, crafts, industry, and so forth. And it's better if this is an understanding of these things in one's own local context, at the very least. A good education confers also some capacity to analyze the conditions around one's community and to identify what are the forces that are leading to those conditions. And a corresponding ability to express one's own ideas and to be part of consultation as to how those problems can be resolved. A good education inculcates a disposition to analyze and a desire to understand features of government, administration, the civic polity, and community, law, and so forth. And finally, 5 principles that I think represent some organizational or methodological aspects relating to education as to what would represent good quality education. The first principle is the compulsory nature of education, the idea that the education of children is an obligation of every single family, and that in fact it's the whole community's responsibility as well, and that the community must allocate the necessary funds for the education of children. The second principle, which is perhaps quite neglected but which is really needed, is that parent education, involvement of the family as an educational environment. So, therefore, the engagement of the parents in discussion of the education of their children, the process of the education of the children. The third is a commitment to the unity of humankind. And this implies a balance between a study of one's own cultural heritage and also exploring common universal qualities. The fourth principle is, and this is very important, a non-sectarian approach to moral education. If we have a non-sectarian approach to moral education, we free the children and young people from religious bigotry and fanaticism, and we provide a more spiritual approach to moral education. And the last organizational principle is the abolition of all forms of prejudice, which leads to policies that favor groups that have been discriminated against, such as women or disadvantaged social classes. Under this principle, for example, education of girls would be given primary importance in order to enable girls to play their full share in the organization of society and alongside men in every field of human endeavor. And I suggest that an education that is based on these principles, on such principles, is capable of playing a transformative role in the life of the individual and also in the life of social organization. And I believe that that is the kind of education that is needed and relevant for today, and that is a kind of education we could perhaps call a quality education. Thank you very much.
Thank you, madam, for a very erudite and enlightening presentation. You have rightly pointed out that in the emerging existential scenario, we are beset with new challenges, and we should be prepared to meet those challenges effectively and efficiently. Of course, the challenges are always there as a part of our life. And right from the ancient times, challenges were there. And Indian culture has that vitality, that resilience to meet all these challenges. And even the present day challenge of this pandemic, corona, well, we have met it very satisfactorily, and we shall be meeting it with full vigor and full strength. But we have to be prepared in advance. And for that, you rightly pointed out that there has to be a paradigm shift in our value perception. In fact, these values are masquerading as values. And those which are vices, our youth particularly, they are taking it to be the virtues. So they need to be properly enlightened through education. And you have rightly pointed out again that the system of education should not just be informative, it should be transformative. It should transform the individual, should transform the society, to transform the entire cosmic process as well. It should be, as Vedic says, Rita governed process, not unrit vitiated process. And for that, you have pointed out the role, the significance and efficacy of education. Our rishis and munis have pointed out that there are two objectives of good education. One is sa vidyaya vimuktaye. Education should lead to all-round perfection. Should not be lopsided. It should not make us just an engineer or a doctor or a mechanic, etc., but a holistic person. The new person that we have to emerge out is a holistic person. A person who caters to the needs of the body, needs of the mind, needs of the intellect, and the needs of the spirit as well. So, education should therefore be really transformative. To use Vivekananda's phraseology, it should be man-making education, full men, not a lopsided men. And the other thing, our rishis pointed out that sa vidya ya artha kari. This is also equally important. It must sustain our life, make our life worthy of living. That means whatever be the needs, education should enable us to meet those needs. The needs may be material, they may be mental, they may be intellectual, and they may be overall spiritual. And you have therefore pointed out that our new education policy, which has just been introduced and initiated. I hope that it will enable us, India, to come out with a new paradigm of education, which should be emulated all over the world. Our Rishi used to say that our knowledge that we acquire should be for the whole world, and therefore, Karmantu Vishwamaryam, whole world should be made noble by us. So, with this, there are many salient points which you have rightly pointed out, but for shortage of time, I would not refer to that right now. But you did point out that there should be a right type of education which we require, and for that there has to be a paradigm shift. So we are really grateful to you for your very enlightened presentation. Now we have the final speaker, who is an erudite, well-read and learned scholar, deeply steeped in Indian culture, and he is Professor Ramnath Sharma. He is a professor in the School of Sanskrit and Indic Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University, and his special area of teaching and research are Vedic studies, Vedanta, Sankhya, Yoga, Navyanyaya, Indian culture, and philosophy of science. In fact, he has made an attempt to spiritualize our scientific enterprise, and that's a welcome feature on his part. He has participated in many national and international conferences, seminars, workshops, and delivered special lectures in many prestigious institutions, India and abroad. So I welcome him and invite him to make his erudite presentation.
इदम नमः ऋषिभ्यः पूर्वजेभ्यः पूर्वेभ्यः पथकृतभ्यः शंकरं शंकराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वंदे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। परमादरणीय प्रोफेसर भट्ट साहब, chair of this session, His Excellency, other panelists, Shri Adarani Shri Ram Madhav ji, Professor Sinha ji, my friend Professor S.P. Singh ji, and other distinguished scholars and researchers. So with pranam to all, I like to share the traditional account of Dharma. As Professor Bhatt said, Dharma is the cosmic law, and in Rig Veda, Rishi says the cosmic law is nothing but Rit. Particularly in Purush Sukta, in the 16th mantra, Yagyen Yagyamajayant Devah Tani Dharmani Prathamanyasan. So Dharma is nothing but the cosmic law, and that is equal to Yagya, that is also equal to Rit. So Rit, Yagya and Dharma, these three terms are synonymous. With this, Swami Vivekananda says, Dharma is nothing but the divine manifestation of ultimate truth. This is the understanding of Dharma of our Vedic Rishi, and with manifestations
with the pluralistic reality. Finally, it was explained by Vedanga. And we know we have Kalpa, one of the 6 Vedangas, there is a Kalpa. And there are 4 sections. One is Dharma Sutra, Grihya Sutra, Sulbha Sutra, and one is Sraut Sutra. So Sraut Sutra actually gives us the analysis of the ritualistic aspect of divine manifestations, ritualistic aspect of cosmic law. So that should be understood properly. The second is Dharma Sutra. Dharma Sutra is nothing but the law of a state. So a state head should govern, should rule the country as per the norms decided by citizens, and that in tuning with cosmic law. Third is Grihya Sutra, rules for individuals, for family. And fourth, Sulbha Sutra. Sulbha Sutra actually is the first systematic text of Indian mathematics, and through that, dharma or action should be quantified or measured. So with this kind of understanding, Dharma Shastra was developed. And Dharma Shastra, Dharma Shastra is the proper study of dharma as per traditional understanding. This Dharma Shastra includes Vedic text, because Vedic text gives us the holistic understanding of reality. So Vedic text plus Dharma plus all Kalpa Sutras, and then all Smritis. Smritis are nothing but the text for the contextual aspect of governance. So there are many Smriti texts, but a rule was decided there that whenever you practice Smriti, that should be in tuning with cosmic law. So whenever you violate something, whenever you act something that goes against the welfare of society, then that should be checked. So Shruti Smriti Virodhe tu Shruti Rev Gariyasi. When there is a clash between Shruti and Smriti, Ved and Smriti, then Ved will prevail. So you should stick to the rules, to the application of those rules that should be in congruence with the cosmic rule. This is the position our scholars has taken. And finally, Gita concludes all these things. Gita is Karma Shastra. Gita is also Dharma Shastra. So there we find Yada Yada Hi Dharmasya Glanirvavati Bharata Abhyuthanam Dharmasya Tadatmanam Srijamyaham. So Krishna is devoted to establish Dharma. And Adi Shankaracharya says in the first part of Gita, Idam Gita Shastram Samast Vedarth Sar Sangrah Bhutam Durvigyayartham. This Gita is nothing but the essence of the whole Vedic tradition, and very, very difficult to understand. Very difficult. Generally we know that Gita is a very, very popular text. We can understand it easily. But Acharya Shankar never said when he was writing commentary on Brahma Sutra. Brahma Sutra is supposed to be the most difficult text. He never said when he commented upon Upanishads, but he He intentionally made this statement, idam Gita Shastram samast Vedarth sar sangra bhutam durvigyayartham, because Gita explains dharma, Gita explains karma, and karma is very difficult to understand. Kim karma, kim akarma, iti kabyo pyatra mohita. A scholar is under delusion when he has to act, he has to take decision. And finally he classifies karma, vikarma and akarma. So karma is nothing but the sanctioned act. Sanctioned act by traditional wisdom and sanctioned act by state. That is karma. That should be performed. Vikar means non-sanctioned act. When you do something on your own and by doing something you do not hesitate to violate, that creates problem in society. That creates problem in family. That creates problem at global level. And finally, akarma. Akarma means I will not do anything. Alasya, etc. Krishna clarifies it. Ki nobody can be without action. Nahi kaschit kshanamapi jatu tishtatya karma krit. If you have body, you have to act. So if you are claiming that I will not do anything, it means you are ignorant. You will have to act. Now it is option before you. What type of act you want to perform? Act for yourself, act for the welfare of society, or act for doing something negative. But you will have to act. And that act should be again performed on the basis of Shastra. Shastra means on the basis of a law-making process. Shastra is defined by Kumaril Bhatt, pravrittirva nivrittirva nityena kritakenva pungsham yenopadishyeta tat shastram abhidhiyate. Shastra is that which prompts you to act on the basis of cosmic structure, on the basis of law framed by the society. Shastra also make you abstain from negative act. So that is known as Shastra. Krishna says in the 16th chapter of Gita that your act should be performed by Shastra, governed by Shastra. So this is the one aspect. Other aspect is that since the whole universe is the manifestation of that ultimate truth, then there are cosmic law, then there are natural principles. And those natural principles have been named as Devata in our tradition. Generally we confuse to understand the meaning of Devata. Nirukta says Devah Danat. Devata is that natural power which gives us everything unconditionally, that provides us everything unconditionally. For example, Prithvi provides everything unconditionally. Water provides everything unconditionally. Air provides everything unconditionally. The temperature of our body has not determined or decided by us. It has been decided by nature. The temperature of earth, we are doing great conference that we should restrict the global warming. It should be restricted within 1.5 degree. If it increases, then we cannot sustain. So the temperature of body, the temperature of earth, the temperature of environment has not been decided by us. That has been decided by some natural principle. That is known as Devata. So Prithvi Devata, Agni Devata, Jal Devata, Vayu Devata. And we must have respect for those Devatas. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Deva Devan Bhavayata Nena Te Deva Bhavayantu Vah Parasparam Bhavayanta Sreya Param Avapsyatha. If you take care of natural laws, natural principle, natural deity, then natural deity will also take care of you. And by taking care of each other, you can reach the state of happiness. Sreya Param Avapsyatha. Otherwise, what we are doing at global level, we are just taking all decision on the basis of Bhogvadi Vritti. We are not cautious to take decision on the basis of these natural principles. Acharya Shankar, I will speak one more slok. Bhagavan Krishna says, Evam pravartitam chakram. There is a cyclic process. Cyclic process means we are depending on natural things, natures are depending upon us. So there is a cyclic process. And if we violate that cyclic process, that will create problem for society and also for nature. Evam pravartitam chakram nanuvartiyati yah aghayu indriyaramah mogham partha sajivati. Krishna says they don't have right to live on this earth if they are violating these principles. Acharya Shankar systematizes all these things into two parts. The dharma dvibidha. Pravritti lakshana dharma, nivritti lakshana dharma. Means principle that should be applied to achieve worldly things. Because these are requirements, these are essentials to sustain. So dharma, artha, kam, particularly the desires, the money, other worldly things have been kept under abhyuday. So you have to achieve those things because for leading life these are necessary. But these are non-eternal. These are destructible reality. Tad yathe karma chito lokakshiyate evameva mutra punya chita lokakshiyate. Whatever you achieve, that will go to an end at finally. And that will create problem, that will lead you to the state of misery, pain. Do you want to live in pain? No. So you have another option. Option to understand the truth, to realize the truth. And truth is not outside of this universe. Truth is within the universe. So you should explore within you what is truth. You should bhutesu vichinta dhira pretyasma lokad amrita bhavanti. That searching aspect, this is known as nivritti mulak dharma. So yato va imani bhutani jayante yen jatani jivanti yat priyantya visam visanti tad brahma tad vijijyasasva. So you have to finally explore the truth. With this I will take 5 minutes. With this background, there are two types of dharma. One is acquired property or contextual property. Particularly when we are talking of corona. So there is a contextual property. Sometimes something happens. But that can be controlled through natural property. If we follow the natural principle, for example, we are talking of the make our immune system stronger. In Ayurveda, there are concept of dhatu, sapta dhatu. And the essence of sapta dhatu is oj. Oj is the translation of immunity, a strong immunity. So to take care of your body, you can make your immunity strong, and that will lead you to have a healthy mind. And with healthy mind, you can understand the true nature of Dharma. And by understanding true nature of Dharma, you can lead society, you can lead family, you can lead a state, and then finally you can lead towards the state of sustainable development. So these are the traditional things we must understand. And if we understand the nature of Dharma, that actually is required for society. Bhagavan Krishna in Gita says we must develop, but we must develop Daivi Sampat, not Asuri Sampat. As Professor Bhatt said, that there are scientific developments, but that is meant for business, that is meant for other thing. That should be for the welfare of society, so that should be Daivi Sampat, not Asuri Sampat. Dharma actually plays very important role in this context. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. And I think this churning will lead us to some conclusion. Thank you so much. Namaskar to everyone.
We thank Professor Jha for a very learned, enlightening and instructive presentation, presenting the very sum and substance of Indian culture. He has rightly emphasized Dharma as yajna, and yajna is a corporate collective enterprise for the welfare of all. While performing yajna, we say idam na mama, idam indraya swaha. So it is a collective enterprise for the collective wellness. This is Dharma, and Dharma therefore is a cosmic principle. In fact, we are grateful to you for highlighting this. Time is up. I don't think I can make my own presentation. Questions you? Two questions are permissible. In fact, I wanted to make my own presentation, but I withhold it. Now only 2 questions are permitted. If someone wants to say, Ram Madhavji will start then. Ram Madhavji is not only a diplomat, but also an erudite intellectual, and he has a rare philosophical acumen.
My question
That's the point
is
of
to Ambassador Namgyal. We hear mostly when you yourself or any of the Bhutanese leaders talk, you necessarily mention about gross national happiness, the principle of your country. It's something like GDP. And in GDP, your country does better than India. You have better per capita GDP than India. You get, your people get more than $1,200 more than we Indians get. So, in GDP terms, you do well. But mostly when we talk about GDP, we only talk about the gross figures. It does not necessarily reflect the status of the average person. For example, in GDP, we are number 5th in the world. But in GDP per capita, we are 152nd. Whereas you, in terms of GDP, you are 162nd. And in terms of per capita, you are much better than us. You are 122nd. My point is, when you talk about gross national happiness, do you also take into account the happiness of an average individual Bhutanese citizen? How do you measure that? It will work.
Thank you, Ram Madhavji. You say that our GDP is higher than India's. Well, if it is higher than India because our population is small, and it is also higher largely because of the generous assistance we have received from India for our development process. And that has led to a good economic development for Bhutan. And the gross national happiness concept in Bhutan is where our king the fourth king of Bhutan. He came up with this development philosophy shortly after he took over the throne in 1974. And it is based on the need to emphasize the overall well-being and happiness of the individual citizens of the country. And this actually philosophy goes back to the 1600s, when the founder of Bhutan as a nation state, Shabdung Namgyel, he was the religious leader and a statesman. He unified our country. He began the administrative system. And he said, if the government is not able to promote the well-being and happiness of the people, then it has no reason to exist. So that philosophy was there for centuries in Bhutan. The fourth king brought it into articulation in the 5-year development plans in Bhutan, when he realized that for a small country, GDP is important, but we should not get obsessed with the statistics of the GDP. It must reach down, the benefits must reach down to every individual citizen in the country. So if the citizens are not reasonably happy, then development activities have not succeeded. And that's why the people were consulted in all the development programs in Bhutan, our 5-year plans. And the 5-year plans are formulated by our Planning Commission. In those days, it's Planning Commission. Now it is called the Gross National Happiness Commission, just to reflect the importance of happiness. And the plans were presented to the people by the king, by the ministers, by the development department heads, in public meetings before the plans were implemented. This was possible to do in Bhutan because our population is small, 700,000 people. We have 20 districts. So the district population of the largest one is also not very large. And our system, from the time of the founder statesman, Shabdung Namgyel, was a member of each family is represented in all public meetings. That system was continued till the time parliamentary democracy was introduced in 2008. So when we have public meetings in a district, a member of each family is present. And the king himself used to chair the 5-year plan presentation meetings. So every member of the family in every district, 20 meetings were held before the plans were finalized. And the aim was that the outcome of the development programs benefits the people. And midway through the 5-year plans, again, review meetings were held to see the progress of the 5-year plans. And the people were welcome to criticize if there were shortfalls. Course correction was also implemented. So this is the essence of how happiness or well-being was implemented in practice. Because the 4 pillars of gross national happiness is basically preserving the natural environment, preserving the cultural heritage, ensuring sustainable and equitable development in all parts of the country. And the key to that is good governance. That's the 4th pillar. Without good governance and accountability, you cannot implement the philosophy of gross national happiness in the development plan process. So that, in a sense, is actually the gross national happiness. Measurement is done. Measurement is done more recently in 9 domains. You measure the health of the people, the state of the psychological well-being of the people, how much economic progress they have made, are they satisfied in the spiritual aspects of the individual lives, the community vitality, are they satisfied with the environment. Surveys are done to carry out, and these surveys are tabulated together. And then the Planning Commission, the Gross National Happiness Commission, and the government has an idea as to where the shortcomings are. Are the rural people more happy? Are the urban people more happy in certain areas? And then these inputs are factored into, again, the planning process for the development programs. So that is GNH in action that way. But the key is value traditions of Dhamma, which we follow in Bhutan. And you have to respect the natural habitat. You have to have your cultural values and traditions intact and promoted. And you must make sure that everybody all over the country is brought along together to a certain level. We are not the happiest country in the world, but we are also not the unhappiest. I think we are quite okay somewhere in between. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your very elaborate response. The Western Development Index is purely materialistic, but ours is holistic. It's all-round development that should be taken into account, and therefore we have to revise our estimate of development. One more question is permissible. Yeah, please. Yeah, please. Mike, please.
Most of the time you have been talking about cosmic law. You talked about cosmic law, Professor Jha also talked about cosmic law. What is the cosmic law after all?
See, the cosmos has a built-in principle of order and harmony. Harmony means peaceful corporate living with mutual caring and sharing. This is cosmic law. Prema and Karuna are the guiding principles of cosmic law, and Isa Varshopanishad has very beautifully summarized it. Tena tyaktena bhujitaha. You first make offers for the others and then you enjoy. Not that first you enjoy and then. So cosmic law therefore stands for universal peace, universal prosperity, universal harmony. This is cosmic law. Yeah. Okay, then the time is up, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Before we formally conclude this first plenary session of the day, I request the Honorable Chairperson, Professor S.R. Bhatt, to hand over a token of appreciation from our side on behalf of Nalanda University and India Foundation. I request Professor S.R. Bhatt to kindly felicitate Shri Eknath Dhakalji, who has come all the way from Nepal. I request our volunteers to please come on the stage. It's on the way. Please come. Please, ladies and gentlemen, huge round of applause while we felicitate our guest. We request Professor S.R. Bhatt to kindly felicitate Major General Wetsop Namgyalji, Ambassador of Bhutan to India. We request Professor Bhatt to kindly felicitate Professor Geeta Gandhi Kingdonji now. And now we request Professor Bhatt to kindly felicitate our final speaker for the plenary session, Professor Ramnath Jhaji. I would like to request Major General Dhruv Katotji to please come on the stage and kindly felicitate our chairperson for the plenary session, Professor S.R. Bhatt. Sir, as a matter of protocol, we are... Please, sir. Friends, we'll now move for a tea which will go on for the next 10 minutes. All of you are requested to kindly reassemble at this hall sharply at 11:30 am because we are going to start our next session at 11:30 am. Thank you so much.